Hey, welcome to Sci-Fi Secrets. So I was on the fence about doing a video on the Martian Chronicles for a few reasons. The first and foremost of which is the fact that, by today's standards, it's basically a fantasy novel. We know that there's no life on Mars, at least no intelligent life. We know you can't breathe Martian air, and I'm pretty sure no one ever seriously thought that Martians got around by riding flying carpets pulled by thousands of flaming birds on strings. But when this was written in 1946, we didn't know any of that. Well, except the bird thing. Like I said, I don't think anyone ever thought that was actually a thing, so yeah. There are even still people claiming they saw artificially made canals on Mars back then. So at the time, it was true sci-fi. But it is one nuts book. Ray Bradbury had an absolutely amazing imagination. I want to read you the entire first chapter, but for brevity's sake, I'm not going to. I'll just read part of it. The imagery in this book is one of the things that got me hooked on sci-fi. I know I probably say that a lot, but there's just so much to love about sci-fi, and so many reasons why I love it. The first time I read the Martian Chronicles, I was sucked into this strange, amazing universe full of mystery. The setting that Bradbury paints in your mind is dark and strange, and yet all too familiar at the same time. I don't know if it was his intention, but the Martians themselves give the impression of being so normal and understandable, but they are set in this otherworldly magical place. It's such a jarring juxtaposition. The flame birds waited, like a bed of coals, glowing on the cool, smooth sands. The white canopy ballooned on the night wind, flapping softly, tied by 1,000 green ribbons to the birds. Yola laid herself back in the canopy, and, at a word from her husband, the birds leaped, burning towards the dark sky. The ribbons tautened. The canopy lifted. The sand slid whining under. The blue hills drifted by, leaving their home behind. The raining pillars, the caged flowers, the singing books. The whispering floor creaks. She did not look at her husband. She heard him crying out to the birds as they rose higher, like 10,000 hot sparkles. So many red-yellow fireworks in the heavens, tugging the canopy like a flower petal, burning through the wind. She didn't watch the dead, ancient bone chest cities slide under, or the old canals filled with emptiness and dreams. Past dry rivers and dry lakes they flew, like a shadow of the moon, like a torch burning. She watched only the sky. The husband spoke. She watched the sky. "Did you hear what I said?" "What?" He exhaled. "You might pay attention." "I was thinking." "I never thought you were a nature lover, but you're certainly interested in the sky tonight," he said. "It's very beautiful." "I was figuring," said the husband slowly. "I thought I'd call Huel tonight. I'd like to talk to him about us spending some time, only a week or so, in the Blue Mountains. It's just an idea." "The Blue Mountains?" She held to the canopy rim with one hand, turning swiftly towards him. "Oh, it's just a suggestion." "When do you want to go?" she asked, trembling. "I thought we might leave tomorrow morning. You know, an early start and all that," he said very casually. "But we never go this early in the year." "Just this once, I thought," he smiled. "Do us good to get away. Some peace and quiet, you know. You haven't anything else planned. We'll go, won't we?" She took a breath, waited, and then replied, "No." "What?" His cry startled the birds. The canopy jerked. "No," she said firmly. "It's settled. I won't go." He looked at her. They did not speak after that. She turned away. The birds flew on, 10,000 firebrands down the wind. In the dawn sun, through the crystal pillars, melted the fog that supported Yella as she slept. All night she had hung above the floor, buoyed by the soft carpeting of mist that poured from the walls when she lay down to rest. All night she had slept on this silent river, like a boat upon a soundless tide. Now the fog burned away. The mist level lowered until she was deposited upon the shore of awakening. She opened her eyes. Her husband stood over her. He looked as if he had stood there for hours watching. She did not know why, but she could not look him in the face. "You've been dreaming again," he said. "You spoke out and kept me awake. I really think you should see a doctor." I'll be all right. You talked a lot in your sleep. Did I? She started up. Dawn was cold in the room. A gray light filled her as she lay there. What was your dream? She had to think a moment to remember. The ship. It came from the sky again, landed, and the tall man stepped out and talked with me, telling me little jokes, laughing, and it was pleasant. Mr. K touched a pillar. Founts of warm water leaped up, steaming. The chill vanished from the room. Mr. K's face was impassive. And then, she said, this man, who said his strange name was Nathaniel York, told me I was beautiful and kissed me. Ha! Cried the husband, turning violently away, his jaw working. It's only a dream, she was amused. Keep your silly feminine dreams to yourself. You're acting like a child. She lapsed back upon the few remaining remnants of chemical mist. After a moment, she laughed softly. I thought of some more of the dream, she confessed. Well, what is it? What is it? He shouted. Yill, you're so bad-tempered. Tell me, he demanded. You can't keep secrets from me. His face was dark and rigid as he stood over her. I've never seen you this way, she replied, half shocked, half entertained. All that happened was this Nathaniel York person told me, well, he told me that he'd take me away into his ship, into the sky with him, and take me back to his planet with him. It's really quite ridiculous. Ridiculous, is it? He almost screamed. You should have heard yourself, fawning on him, talking to him, singing with him. Oh gods, all night you should have heard yourself. Yill, when's he landing? Where's he coming down with his damned ship? Yill, lower your voice. Voice be damned. He bent stiffly over her. And in this dream, he seized her wrist, didn't the ship land over in Green Valley? Didn't it? Answer me. Why, yes. And it landed this afternoon, didn't it? He kept at her. Yes, I think so, yes, but only in a dream. Well, he flung her hand away stiffly. It's good you're truthful. I heard every word you said in your sleep. You mentioned this valley and the time. Breathing hard, he walked between the pillars like a man blinded by a lightning bolt. Slowly, his breath returned. She watched him as if he were quite insane. She arose finally and went to him. Yill? She whispered. I'm all right. You're sick. No, he forced a tired smile. Just childish. Forgive me, darling. He gave her a rough pat. Too much work lately. I'm sorry. I think I'll lie down a while. You were so excited. I'm all right now. Fine, he exhaled. Let's forget it. Say, I heard a joke about Yule yesterday. I meant to tell you. What do you say you fix breakfast? I'll tell the joke. And let's not talk about all this. It was only a dream. Of course. He kissed her cheek mechanically. Only a dream. At noon the sun was high and hot, and the hills shimmered in the light. Aren't you going to town? Asked Yilla. Town? He raised his eyes faintly. This is the day you always go. She adjusted a flower cage on its pedestal. The flowers stirred, opening their hungry yellow mouths. He closed his book. No, it's too hot, and it's late. Oh. She finished her task and moved towards the door. Well, I'll be back soon. Wait a minute. Where are you going? She was in the door swiftly. Over to Peo's. She invited me. Today? I haven't seen her in a long time. It's only a little way. Over in Green Valley, isn't it? Yes, just a walk, not far. I thought I'd... She hurried. I'm sorry, really sorry, he said, running to fetch her, looking very concerned about his forgetfulness. It slipped my mind. I invited Dr. Nill out this afternoon. Dr. Nill? She edged towards the door. He caught her elbow and drew her steadily in. Yes. But Peo can wait, Yilla. We must entertain Nill. Just for a few minutes. No, Yilla. No? He shook his head. No. Besides, it's a terribly long walk to Peo's. All the way over through Green Valley and then past the big canal and down, isn't it? And it'll be very, very hot, and Dr. Nill would be so delighted to see you. Well? She did not answer. She wanted to break and run. She wanted to cry out, But she only sat in the chair, turning her fingers over slowly, staring at them, expressionlessly, trapped. Yula? He murmured. You will be here, won't you? Yes, she said after a long time. I'll be here. All afternoon? Her voice was dull. All afternoon. Late in the day, Dr. Nill had not put in an appearance. Yula's husband did not seem overly surprised. When it was quite late, he murmured something, went to a closet, and drew forth an evil weapon, a long, yellowish tube, ending in a bellows and a trigger. He turned, and upon his face was a mask, hammered from silver metal, expressionless. The mask that he always wore when he wished to hide his feelings. The mask which curved and hollowed so exquisitely to his cheeks and chin and brow. The mask glinted, and he held the evil weapon in his hands, considering it. It hummed constantly, an insect hum. From it, hordes of golden bees could be flung out with a high shriek. Golden, horrid bees that stung, poisoned, and fell lifeless, like seeds on the sand. Where are you going? She asked. What? He listened to the bellows, to the evil hum. If Dr. Nill is late, I'll be damned if I'll wait. I'm going out to hunt a bit. I'll be back. You'll be sure to stay right here now, won't you? The silver mask glimmered. Yes. And tell Dr. Nill I'll return, just hunting. The triangular door closed. His footsteps faded down the hill. She watched him, walking through the sunlight until he was gone. Then she resumed her task with the magnetic dust and the new fruits to be plucked from the crystal walls. She worked with energy and dispatch, but on occasion a numbness took hold of her, and she caught herself singing that odd and memorable song, looking out beyond the crystal pillars at the sky. She held her breath and stood very still, waiting. It was coming nearer. At any moment, it might happen. It was like those days when you heard a thunderstorm coming, and there was the waiting silence, and then the faintest pressure of the atmosphere as the climate blew over the land in shifts and shadows and vapors. And the change pressed all your ears, and you were suspended in that waiting time of the coming storm. You began to tremble. The sky was stained and colored. The clouds were thickened. The mountains took on an iron taint. The caged flowers blew with faint sighs and warning. You felt your hair stir softly. Somewhere in the house, the voice clock sang, time, 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 ever so gently. No more than water tapping on velvet. And then the storm, the electric illumination, the engulfment of dark wash and sounding black fell down, shutting in forever. That's how it was now. A storm gathered, yet the sky was clear. Lightning was expected, yet there were no clouds. Yula moved through the breathless summer house. Lightning would strike from the sky any instant. There would be a thunderclap, a bowl of smoke, a silence, footsteps on the path, a rap on the crystalline door, and her running to answer. Crazy Yula, she scoffed. Why think these wild things with your idle mind? And then it happened. There was a warmth, as of a great fire passing in the air, a whirling, rushing sound, a gleam in the sky of metal. Yula cried out. Running through the pillars, she flung wide a door. She faced the hills. But by this time, there was nothing. She was about to race down the hill when she stopped herself. She was supposed to stay here, go nowhere. The doctor was coming to visit, and her husband would be angry if she ran off. She waited in the door, breathing rapidly, her hand out. She strained to see over towards Green Valley, but saw nothing. Silly woman, she went inside. You and your imagination, she thought. That was nothing but a bird, a leaf, the wind, or a fish in the canal. Sit down. Rest. She sat down. A shot sounded. Very clearly, sharply, the sound of the evil insect weapon. Her body jerked with it. It came from a long ways off. One shot. The swift humming distant bees. One shot. And then a second shot, precise and cold and far away. Her body winced again, and for some reason she started up, screaming, and never wanting to stop screaming. She ran violently through the house and once more threw wide the door. The echoes were dying away, gone. She waited in the yard, her face pale, for 5 minutes. Finally, with slow steps, her head down, she wandered about the pillared rooms, laying her hand to things, her lip quivering, until finally she sat alone in the darkening wine room, waiting. She began to wipe an amber glass with the hem of her scarf. And then, from far off, the sound of footsteps, crunching on the thin, small rocks. She rose up to stand in the center of the quiet room. The glass fell from her fingers, smashed to bits. The footsteps hesitated outside the door. Should she speak? Should she cry out? "Come in! Oh, come in!" She went forward a few paces. The footsteps walked up the ramp. A hand twisted the door latch. She smiled at the door. The door opened. She stopped smiling. It was her husband. The silver mask glowed dully. He entered the room and looked at her for only a moment. Then he snapped the weapon bellows open, cracked out 2 dead bees, heard them spat on the floor as they fell, stepped on them, and placed the empty bellow gun in the corner of the room as Yellow bent down and tried, over and over with no success, to pick up the pieces of the shattered glass. "What were you doing?" she asked. "Nothing," he said with his back turned. He removed the mask. "But the gun, I heard you fire it, twice." "Just hunting. Once in a while you like to hunt. Did Dr. Nill arrive?" "No." "Wait a minute." He snapped his fingers disgustedly. "Why, I remember now. He was supposed to visit us tomorrow afternoon. How stupid of me." They sat down to eat. She looked at her food and did not move her hands. "What's wrong?" he asked, not looking up from dipping his meat in the bubbling lava. "I don't know. I'm not hungry," she said. "Why not?" "I don't know. I'm just not." The wind was rising across the sky. The sun was going down. The room was small and suddenly cold. "I've been trying to remember," she said in the silent room, across from her cold, erect, golden-eyed husband. "Remember what?" He sipped his wine. "That song. That fine and beautiful song." She closed her eyes and hummed, but it was not the song. "I've forgotten it, and somehow I don't want to forget it. It's something I always want to remember." She moved her hands as if the rhythm might help her to remember all of it. Then she lay back in her chair. "I can't remember." She began to cry. "Why are you crying?" he asked. I don't know, but I can't help it. I'm sad, and I don't know why. I cry, and I don't know why, but I'm crying." Her head was in her hands. Her shoulders moved again and again. "You'll be all right tomorrow," he said. She did not look up at him. She looked only at the empty desert and at the very bright stars coming out now on the black sky, and far away there was a sound of wind rising and canal water stirring and the cold in the long canals. She shut her eyes, trembling. "Yes," she said, "I'll be all right tomorrow." Okay, so I ended up reading the majority of the first real chapter in the book anyway. I never know what to say about books that people won't consider a spoiler. I feel like there is never much you can say about a book without giving away some kind of spoilers. I mean, the reason why you pick one book and not another is because they seem more interesting. And what makes the book interesting? Their major plot points. So, as usual, only a few minutes in and it's that time again. Spoilers time. You have been warned. So I don't know if I should emphasize the imagery more and go into that, or tell you what happens to the first men on Mars. The first time I read the book, I didn't know what to think. The first 2 men land on Mars and are killed by a jealous husband. I still to this day don't know what to make of that chapter. Was Bradbury trying to show us that Martians, though very different, were still in some ways exactly like us? Was he trying to show the looser set of morals that Martians have? Because as a kid, that's the message I got. Mars was like the Wild West, but with boiling lava or maybe molten metal in the center of the table instead of a stove. The first chapter lets us know that Martians are telepathic by letting us know that somehow one of the 2 men on the first ship to Mars was flirting with the married Martian woman in her dreams. I'm not sure if that was intentional or what. But she's literally obsessing over this human in her dreams, and her husband becomes jealous. And when the ship lands, well, you already know the end of that. Bang, bang, or maybe buzz, buzz. Yeah. In case you didn't catch on, in the chapter I was just reading, what happened was 2 men on a spaceship from Earth were going to land on Mars, and before they landed on Mars, somehow one of them made telepathic contact with that married woman. So, yeah, I don't know if any of their dreams were intentional or what was going on there, but obviously her husband was jealous, and so he went off and just killed the first two extraterrestrials to ever visit Mars. Would it be terrestrial? Does terrestrial mean Earth? Maybe I'll have to look that up. Probably put it on screen right now. But yeah, the first two extra Martian terrestrials to ever make it to Mars were killed by a jealous husband as soon as they land. So that's a little odd, right? But this does make a little more sense in light of the next trip to Mars. But not a lot, to be honest. The next four men to visit Mars are basically ignored. They knock on the door of a farmhouse and are basically told to get lost by the lady of the house. After being given a bit of a runaround, the four astronauts finally find themselves in a mental institution where they discover that telepathy can also be used to put images in other people's minds. No one believes they are giant albino Earthlings because they believe that is just a false image they are projecting into their minds. It's kind of hard to convince anyone you are someone special when everyone can look like you, I guess. Eventually, a Martian psychologist kills the captain, thinking he was putting him out of his misery for his severe insanity. But the ship and the three crewmates, which the psychologist believes to all be part of the captain's mentally projected hallucinations, stay. He expected them to evaporate when he killed the captain. So he kills the crewmates as well. When they still don't disappear, he thinks himself to be the crazy one and kills himself too, thus ending the second mission to Mars. Like, what the hell is this book, right? The third expedition finds themselves in a horror movie. It consists of 16 men, but this time, the Martians knew what humans were and were prepared. The third expedition landed in Green Bluff, Illinois, or what looked like Green Bluff. All the men met their dead relatives in this town. They all ended up going off with their relatives, and that night, their dead loved ones killed them before their faces melted back into those of Martians. The fourth expedition found no Martians at all, at least none alive. In a scene reminiscent of War of the Worlds, our viruses had killed them all off in between missions. And therefore, with a good report back to Earth, the settlement of Mars began. He pulled into a little dead Martian town, stopped the engine, and let the silence come in around him. He sat, not breathing, looking out at the white buildings in the moonlight. Uninhabited for centuries. Perfect. Faultless. In ruins, yes, but perfect nonetheless. He started the engine and drove on another mile or more before stopping again, climbing out, carrying his lunch bucket and walking to a little promontory where he could look back at that dusty city. He opened his thermos and poured himself a cup of coffee. A night bird flew by. He felt very good, very much at peace. Perhaps 5 minutes later there was a sound. Off in the hills, where the ancient highway curved, there was a motion, a dim light, and then a murmur. Tomas turned slowly with the coffee cup in his hand, and out of the hills came a strange thing. It was a machine, like a jade-green insect, a praying mantis, delicately rushing through the cold air, indistinct, countless green diamonds winking over its body, and red jewels that glittered with multifaceted eyes. Its 6 legs fell upon the ancient highway with the sound of a sparse rain which dwindled away. And from the back of the machine, a Martian with melted gold for eyes looked down at Tomas as if he were looking into a well. Tomas raised his hand and thought, "Hello," automatically, but did not move his lips, for this was a Martian. But Tomas had swum in blue rivers on Earth, with strangers passing on the roads, and eaten in strange houses with strange people, and his weapon had always been his smile. He did not carry a gun, and he did not feel the need of one now, even with the little fear that gathered about his heart at this moment. The Martian's hands were empty too. For a moment, they looked across the cool air at each other. It was Tomas who moved first. "Hello," he called. "Hello," called the Martian in his own language. They did not understand each other. "Did you say hello?" they both asked. "What did you say?" they said, each in a different tongue. They scowled. "Who are you?" said Tomas in English. "What are you doing here?" in Martian. The stranger's lips moved. "Where are you going?" they said, and looked bewildered. I'm Tomas Gomez. I'm Mujica. Neither understood, but they tapped their chests with the words, and then it became clear. And then the Martian laughed. Wait. Tomas felt his head touched, but no hand had touched him. There, said the Martian in English. That is better. You learned my language so quick. Nothing at all. They looked embarrassed, with a new silence, at the steaming coffee he had in one hand. Something different? Said the Martian, eyeing him and the coffee, referring to them both, perhaps. May I offer you a drink? Said Tomas. Please. The Martian slid down from his machine. A second cup was produced and filled, steaming. Tomas held it out. Their hands met and, like mist, fell through each other. Jesus Christ! Cried Tomas and dropped the cup. Name of the gods! Said the Martian in his own tongue. Did you see what happened? They both whispered. They were very cold and terrified. The Martian bent to touch the cup but could not touch it. Jesus, said Tomas. Indeed, the Martian tried again and again to get a hold of the cup but could not. He stood up and thought for a moment, then took a knife from his belt. Hey, cried Tomas. You misunderstand. Catch, said the Martian and tossed it. Tomas cupped his hands. The knife fell through his flesh. It hit the ground. Tomas bent to pick it up but could not touch it, and he recoiled, shivering. Now he looked at the Martian against the sky. The stars, he said. The stars, said the Martian, looking in turn at Tomas. The stars were white and sharp beyond the flesh of the Martian, and they were sewn into his flesh like scintillas swallowed into the thin, phosphorescent membrane of a gelatinous sea fish. You could see stars flickering like violet eyes in the Martian's stomach and chest, and through his wrists like jewelry. I can see through you, said Tomas. And I through you, said the Martian, stepping back. Tomas felt his own body, and, feeling the warmth, was reassured. I am real, he thought. The Martian touched his own nose and lips. I have flesh, he said, half aloud. I am alive. Tomas stared at the stranger. And if I am real, then you must be dead. No, you! A ghost! A phantom! They pointed at each other, with starlight burning in their limbs like daggers and icicles and fireflies, and then fell to judging their limbs again, each finding themselves intact, hot, excited, stunned, awed, and the other? Ah yes, that other over there, unreal, a ghostly prism flashing the accumulated light of distant worlds. I'm drunk, thought Tomas. I won't tell anyone of this tomorrow. No, no. They stood there on the ancient highway, neither of them moving. Where are you from? Asked the Martian at last. Earth. What is that? There, Tomas nodded to the sky. When? We landed over a year ago, remember? No. And all of you were dead, all but a few. You're rare. Don't you know that? That's not true. Yes, dead. I saw the bodies, black, in the rooms, in the houses, dead, thousands of them. That's ridiculous. We're alive! Mister, you're invaded. Only you don't know it. You must have escaped. I haven't escaped. There was nothing to escape. What do you mean? I'm on my way to a festival now at the canal near the Nile Mountains. I was there last night. Don't you see the city there? The Martian pointed. Tomas looked and saw the ruins. Why, that city's been dead thousands of years. The Martian laughed. Dead? I slept there yesterday. And I was in it a week ago, and the week before that, and I just drove through it now, and it's a heap. See the broken pillars? Broken? Why, I see them perfectly. The moonlight helps, and the pillars are upright. There's dust in the streets, said Tomas. The streets are clean. The canals are empty right there. The canals are full of lavender wine. It's dead. It's alive, protested the Martian, laughing more now. Oh, you're quite wrong. See all the carnival lights? There are beautiful boats as slim as women, beautiful women as slim as boats, women the color of sand, women with fire flowers in their hands. I can see them, small, running in the streets there. That's where I'm going now, to the festival. We'll float on the waters all night long. We'll sing, we'll drink, we'll make love. Can't you see it? Mister, that city is dead as a dried lizard. Ask any of our party. Me? I'm on my way to Green City tonight. That's the new colony we just raised over near Illinois Highway. You're mixed up. We brought in 1,000,000 board feet of Oregon lumber and a couple dozen tons of good steel nails and hammered together 2 of the nicest little villages you ever saw. Tonight, we're warming one of them. A couple rockets are coming in from Earth, bringing our wives and girlfriends. There will be barn dances and whiskey. The Martian was now disquieted. You say it is over that way? There are rockets. Tomas walked him to the edge of the hill and pointed down. See? No. Damn it! There they are! Those long silver things! No. Now Thomas laughed. You're blind. I see very well. You are the one who does not see. But you see the new town, don't you? I see nothing but an ocean and water at low tide. Mister, that water's been evaporated for 40 centuries. Ah, now, that is enough. It's true, I tell you. The Martian grew very serious. Tell me again. Do you not see the city the way I describe it? The pillars very white, the boats very slender, the festival lights? Oh, I see them clearly. And listen, I can hear them singing. It's no space away at all. Tomas listened and shook his head. No. And I, on the other hand, said the Martian, cannot see what you describe. Well, again they were cold, and ice was in their flesh. Can it be? What? You say from the sky. Earth. Earth, a name, nothing, said the Martian. But, as I came up the pass an hour ago, he touched the back of his neck, I felt cold. Yes. And now? Cold again, oddly. There was a thing to the light, to the hills, the road, said the Martian. I felt the strangeness, the road, the light. For a moment, I felt as if I were the last man alive on this world. So did I, said Thomas, and it was like talking to an old and dear friend, confiding, growing warm with the topic. The Martian closed his eyes and opened them again. This can only mean one thing. It has to do with time. Yes, you are a figment of the past. No, you are from the past, said the Earthman, having had time to think of it now. You are so certain. How can you prove who is from the past, who is from the future? What year is it? 2033. What does that mean to me? Thomas considered and shrugged. Nothing. It's as if I told you that it was the year 4,462,853 SEC. It is nothing, and more than nothing. Where's the clock to show us how the stars stand? But the ruins prove it. They prove that I am the future. I am alive. You are dead. Everything in me denies this. My heart beats. My stomach hungers. My mouth thirsts. No, not dead. Not alive, either of us. More alive than anything else. Caught between it is more like it. 2 strangers passing in the night. That is it. 2 strangers passing. Ruins, you say? Yes. You're afraid. Who wants to see the future? Whoever does. A man can face the past. But to think, the pillars crumbled, you say? And the sea empty? And the canals dry? And the maidens dead? And the flowers withered? The Martian was silent, but then he looked on ahead. But there they are! I see them! Isn't that enough for me? They wait for me now, no matter what you say. And for Tomas, the rockets, far away, waiting for him, and the town and the women from Earth. We can never agree, he said. Let us agree to disagree, said the Martian. What does it matter who is past or future? If we are both alive, for what follows will follow, tomorrow or in 10,000 years. How do you know that those temples are not the temples of your own civilization, 100 centuries from now, tumbled and broken? You do not know, then don't ask. But the night is very short. There go the festival fires in the sky, and the birds. Tomas put out his hand. The Martian did likewise in imitation. Their hands did not touch. They melted through each other. Will we meet again? Who knows? Perhaps some other night. I'd like to go with you to that festival. And I wish I might come to your new town, to see this ship you speak of, to see these men, to hear all that has happened. Goodbye, said Thomas. Good night. The Martian rode his green metal vehicle quietly away into the hills. The Earthman turned his truck and drove it silently in the opposite direction. The images this book conjures in my head are of a strange, beautiful, and magical place full of history. Each story in the Martian Chronicles is different. So unless I want this video to be several hours long, I could never tell you everything about this book. This may not be the Mars we know now, but it would be amazing if it had been. Thanks for listening. Well, if you like that, like, comment, and subscribe, and hopefully I'll see you back for the next one.